Well, thanks to all of you for showing up to this November CTAT Roundtable. And I tell you this every time, but I'm going to say it again because it's true. Not just because I take a bath, but because I get to see everyone and visit. This is my favorite day of the month. And I enjoy this. And when the next gen come on, I just really enjoy it. And I love hearing from you. And I always pick up 2 or 3 tidbits that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And so I appreciate you. And I appreciate you're willing to come on here and share from each other. And so at this time, I'm going to try to show you the 30-second promotional video that the people who do the real work at CTAT have put together. And let's see if I can do the share here. And Robin, yell at me quick if you can't hear this. But here, this is the 30-second promotional video for the Galveston Winter 23 conference. Isn't that fun? Robin, I think we can share that with the area presidents or whoever wants it, correct?
Absolutely.
So what is the best way to share that? Robin, I'll stick a link to it, or is that just something we'll send out to the area presidents or what?
Yep, we can send it out.
Fantastic. Again, thank you guys all for being here. And this is the November 23rd Roundtable. And we'll go ahead, and I have already started the recording. And just as point of notice, these are Zoom-based sessions, and we always post these so members can watch on YouTube later on if they happen to miss. So if you do not wish to have your picture displayed to public view, make sure that you participate with your video turned off. Otherwise, your participation serves as consent to your picture being posted. Thank you so much. I went through this real quick because I put 2 commas in there. I hope no one caught that. But anyway, welcome to season 3. And as you all remember, this came about, these roundtables started because of our COVID updates. And it was just so beneficial to the members being able to share information with each other. This is one of the lingering, or one of the positives that came through the COVID. And so this is our 3rd season of roundtables. It's kind of hard to believe, but we appreciate you guys being here. And O'Neill deGrasse Tyson, like he always says, every first Thursday of the month, brace yourselves because knowledge is coming. And on November 3rd is kind of an interesting day because November 3rd in many years is an election year. And John Adams was elected on a November 3rd. So was Ulysses S. Grant, William McKinley, Bill Clinton was elected on November 3rd. William Taft was elected on November 3rd. Roosevelt was elected on November 3rd. And our very own Lyndon Johnson from the Hill Country was elected on a November 3rd. But probably the most important event that ever happened on November 3rd was in 1956, we had the first airing of The Wizard of Oz on TV. And if any of you have ever cried from those flying monkeys that appear every year, I wasn't one of those, but some people I heard did. But as Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion all worked together to achieve their goals in getting to Oz, that's how the CTAT folks are. These roundtable discussions allow everyone to work together. And I know for a fact that this helps build programs across the state. So I cannot say it enough times how much it is appreciated that you're willing to come together once a month and share ideas and help make other programs and help students across the state on their post-secondary journey. To share with you just a little bit about the CTAT programming, if this is your first time, we have the Next Gen administrators that meet on the 3rd Thursday of every month, and that's a cohort of folks that have been in CTE administration for less than 5 years. Like we're on here, we have our monthly roundtables. We have professional conferences that we'll talk about. Our next one coming up is the Winter 2023 conference. And then we do district program evaluations. We're scheduling those into the spring now. So if you want to get on this year's slate, we can get you scheduled with the spring day. Also make sure that you subscribe to the CTAT YouTube channel, because anything that we post will go on this. And if you subscribe and you click on that bell function, it'll give you a notification every time we post a video. But we for sure post every roundtable video onto the CTAT YouTube channel. Also, don't forget the Connect CTAT open forum is always there. So if you have curriculum you're looking for, everything from what curriculum do you use for rocketry to what do you use to keeping the flies out of your agricultural feeding facility, it can all be found on the Connect CTAT open forum. If you haven't signed up for the TEA CTE newsletters, make sure you do that. And of course, you can just go to the CTE TEA webpage and then click on the tile that says CTE newsletters, and it walks you through that process. I will be posting when we get into the, or Robin may have it here, but I'll post how you can present at the CTAT Winter Leadership Conference 2023, and that'll be January 30th through February 1st in Galveston. And that's such a wonderful promotional video. Show that at your area meetings. However you want to use it. But we want you, and I've visited with several of the administrators that have been in CTAT for 10 plus years, and they were talking about how great the conference was last winter in San Antonio. And the reason why it was so good is because the presentations were so terrific. And more than any other time, we have more competent, more excellent people working in career and technical education than I can ever remember. So make sure that you continue to share your ideas. We want to hear what makes you sing. We want to hear about the great things going on at your districts. We want to hear what inspires your teachers and students. Make sure that you present and make sure you praise what's going on at your district. This is how other people build their programs. Also, we're going to try the golf tournament again. This year's golf tournament will be on January 29th, which is that Sunday. We will have a 4-person scramble format. The cost will be $55 per person. I will put the sign up to the Google form in there, and we'll check in at 1 o'clock, and the first tee time will be at 2 o'clock. And we want everyone to come out. I can promise you that the level of play is below average, well below average. So make sure that you come out, and any playing style is fine. Just come out and participate, and we'll have a good time. We have some prizes to give away, and we hope to build on this every time we have it. So we'll see you at Moody Gardens at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Also, I want to keep while we're talking about conferences, in the summer 2023 conference will be at the Hilton Anatole in Dallas, July 10th through the 13th. And it's really a beautiful facility. I've driven by it 1,000 times, but I never knew what all was there. There's a big water park. It's just a gigantic facility. And so we're shooting for over 1,000 people. And also we're really trying to build some meaningful presentations for the teachers, for you to bring to conference. So the business teachers, we have contracted with the president of the BPA, and she is reaching out. And then we contracted with the president, Ms. Cook, Pam Cook of TSA, to bring in some tech ed and tech apps types. And so we're going to have at least 10 up to 15 individual sessions for each of those teaching groups. Of course, the law's been on their own forever in the teaching and training. Much of their stuff falls right in line with administrator and counselor stuff. So we're really targeting those groups, and we're going to truly have meaningful professional development for those teachers this time. And our goal is to bust 1,000 for summer conference. It's not too late to register for next gen. We have a great group of nearly 50 participating in cohort number 3. And so if you are interested and you want to sneak into this session, then go ahead and register for next gen. Make sure that you're paying attention to our YouTube channel because we are putting some IBC previews up. And our latest preview was the NOCTI certification. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, go in and watch it. There's already been 126 views, which I just think is amazing. And the NOCTI people really share what's going on at their organization and how you can get the ball rolling to start with all of the certifications that they have on the new IBC list. We've been through 2 different sessions of the Finance plus CTE joint workshops, and our 2 groups have been tremendous. Group 1 was in Pflugerville on the 27th, and then this past Tuesday, we had the Houston folks come in at the Hyatt Regency West. The folks from Katy were just tremendous in the information that they presented, just like the Pflugerville folks were on the 27th. And if you're in the North Texas area, or if you're from anywhere really and just want to sign up because you missed the other 2, well, you can come to Denton on the 29th, and our partner district in Denton will be Louisville ISD, and we appreciate those folks and all that they do. Our partnership with TASBO has really been terrific, and that they are so engaging, the TASBO folks, and I think it's so good that the finance officers get to hear the CTE information from the TASBO people. And they put some, it's hard to get to the chat, but I'll get to it right as soon as we get out. Some other updates. Ms. Bonds, are you on here? If so, do you have is Miss Bonds on today, Robin? Have you seen her?
Yes. Hi, Mark. I
hey.
am. And PT is actually going to pitch in on the TEA leadership update because I had a scheduling conflict, so I couldn't make it to the last one. So he's going to jump in. But I just want to say hi to everybody and thanks for being here. This is always a fun time to learn from each other. So I look forward to it. But I will let PT take it over.
Thank you, Miss Bonds. PT.
Thank you. Yes, sir. How are you today?
If I can find you here. There you go.
Oh, yeah. I'm the ugly
Okay.
one. It'll be all right. But anyway, some of the things that they talked about was the proposed non-traditional methodology, kind of shifting from a previous non-traditional list that were developed based on student course enrollment, and that being shifted to a proposed non-traditional list will be based on occupations and programs of study. And I'll get you some more information on that, Mark, too. That way, maybe you can disseminate that out to folks there, kind of get a little bit there. So, and other things that they talked about with the non-traditional things, the data sources. They were looking at Perkins 5, the Perkins State Plan, labor market data, CTE courses, programs of study, CIP codes, and SOC crosswalks. And then they shifted over to the summer grant program. I guess one of the things that really needs to be mentioned there, the due date for the letters of interest and application may be submitted via email. That is November 19th. So that's coming up soon. And there's also an Aim High Flight Academy that the Air Force is putting out there, and it is inspiring the next generations of aviators. And it kind of basically is for people who haven't been in any aviation type stuff or haven't gotten their licensure yet, and they can get like the first 15 hours of flight time within that, but that's through the Air Force and Space Force area there. So
that's awesome. I know several of our districts have aviation programs, and Miss Martin, even at Aldine, she has those flight aviators, and they've even had several students go through and actually become pilots. So I think that's kind of a growing trend within districts across the state.
We've got that here at Hudson as well. We got 4 trainer simulators here, and then we had 3 that got their pilot's license this past year. The person who can apply for this, they have to be 16 years of age by the 1st of June, 2023. 18-year-olds may participate if they are graduating high school in 2023. Their unweighted GPA of at least a 3.0 and not currently hold a private pilot's certificate. And it says that there's no prior flight experience required. So
That's really an incredible opportunity. And,
Yes,
and
sir.
PT, I want to make sure I heard it right. They said that, so non-traditional enrollment will now be based on program of study, concentrators or completers versus individual enrollment.
That's what it's proposed right now. It hasn't been that way yet, but it is proposed that way.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonds. Thank you, PT. Okay, now when we had our first roundtable of the year, Greg and Heather Wheeler were on here and they were talking about how important that the ESC service centers were coming in and doing the security checks. And of course, we all know that career tech's going to be a big part of that. And my mentor, Greg Ship, has been out in the field. Greg, are you on here where you can give an update on kind of what you're seeing at the different districts?
Yeah, I will. And actually, after we had our last meeting, I took some of the thoughts we had from this meeting and came back to my leadership team, specifically talking about CTE labs and those standalone buildings and what that was going to look like when we did the intruder audits. And so actually we got some additional guidance in the process that I think addresses some of the concerns we had about, what if we've got a shop door open? What if we've got 2 shop doors open because it's in the middle of a heat wave or we're out there welding? So we've gotten some guidance on that I think is going to be beneficial and not put us in a difficult situation because our shop doors are open. And the key on that is going to be if there's students in the lab and there's a teacher who's monitoring the lab. That's going to be the key. We're not going to close those shop doors or stop the ventilation in the lab. If we don't have a ventilation system for welding, we got to have those shop doors open with a couple of big shop fans on both sides to help ventilate. So that was one of the big concerns we had. We've also gotten some guidance on perimeter fencing and what that means for a school going through an intruder audit. There's some specific guidelines we received on the height of the fence and how that's going to impact whether or not they consider a standalone facility secure. So just know that, the concerns that we shared as a team, we took back, and those were addressed by the Texas School Safety Center and some guidance that we received. The process is relatively simple. Just to walk you through it, once a school is selected and assigned to a team member, that team member is going to reach out to the superintendent of schools, and there's a written script which you follow verbatim that tells the superintendent what's going to happen. Doesn't tell them when, but it tells them what's going to happen. And then whoever is responsible for law enforcement support for that campus, the team member reaches out to them, and sometimes it's several law enforcement agencies depending on the configuration of the campus. So we've learned a lot in the process. The staff will not know what is going to occur or when it's going to occur. But again, you start out by looking at the campus in its entirety. You're going to walk it. You're going to try to open exterior doors. You're going to look for things like rocks, propping doors open, those kinds of things. If that campus, well, I can't give away the process, but just know that the concerns we had as CTE administrators, specifically on our standalone and CTE buildings, have been addressed. Specific guidance has been given that allows us to continue safe operation of our labs, i.e. ventilation. And so far the process has been very good. We've learned a lot. And I want to reassure everyone here, and I know you've heard this, the intruder audit, you're not coming in as an aggressive actor. You're not coming in and trying to be an aggressive, frighten the staff. You're simply a person trying to get in the building and seeing if any doors are open. So, I know there's a lot of concern out there that there's going to be a confrontation or things like that. There's not. It's not built in this process. As a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. If someone comes and says, "Hey, can I help you?" You tell them, "Yeah, I want to go to the principal's office." And then we go into the principal's office and start the process. And then we can do the internal review of the campus. So non-confrontational. These are not aggressive people, or aggressive actors who are out there. They're going to be dressed pretty much like me with no tie, casual, those kind of things. We're not going to try to trick the staff, nothing like that. It's just a process to make certain that the campus is secure and the procedures that the campus has adopted are being utilized as approved by the board or approved by the campus. So there you go. That's quick, just a quick overview. Anyone have any questions about it? And
Greg,
again,
just,
yes.
now, should the CTE administrator, should they be trying to be proactive and reaching out and getting tips, or should they be waiting for the audit to come through and then make all the corrections at one time?
Well, I think the key on that, Mark, is going to be if the CTE building or wing is attached to the main building, that changes the dynamics of the audit. If you're a standalone building, you have a little more autonomy if you've got those shop doors open, but if you're connected to that main building and you've got a rock propping that door open, that's going to be an issue. So again, I think the CTE administrator should reach out to the campus administration. You should review your campus safety plan. See what you need to find out is, does your campus require to keep doors locked? That's a real key. If your campus has approved and requires you to keep classroom doors locked, then they have to be locked. So that's the first thing an administrator needs to find out. What is our policy on locked doors? And then, given the guidance that I just shared with you guys about the flexibility for standalone buildings, there's a little bit of flexibility there. So again, the whole idea here, this is not a gotcha process. It's just to make sure our campuses are safe and secure, give you the campus some feedback, the district some feedback. And if there's something that can be done to improve the safety for our students and staff, that's what we're going to do. It's a fairly innocent process. The intent is positive. It's a positive process. It's not a gotcha at all. One thing I do want to mention though, and this is new. If that safety report requires recommendations, then you have to go to your board with it, and you have to act on those recommendations. You have to respond to them, and that's new. It is a very rapid response in that the auditor who comes in and reviews the campus must report that day. They have to write the entire report that day and submit it in 2 different places. So the intent is to give the feedback immediately on the campus and then report to the school safety center, and then the follow-up action in a fairly rapid manner. What did I leave out on that? Heather, what did I leave out?
Isn't it 3 times a year, Greg, that they're going to do that? Or is it how many times, do you know?
I haven't heard that it's 3 times a year. I know on the regular safety audits, those are once every 3 to 5 years, I think, PT. Okay. On these, I've not heard that because, you know, and here's the thing, PT, here's what we've got to think about. You've got some K through 12 campuses. So you've got a campus, and I think this may be what you're referring to. If the elementary campus is selected, and the intermediate school is selected, and the high school is selected, guess what? That campus is probably going to get 3 visits if they're all conjoined. So that's what we have to think about. I haven't heard that there are going to be 3 audits, no, unless that's a K through 12 campus and all 3 campuses have been selected for an audit. That would be the only caveat on that one.
Well, I'm glad this is happening, and we appreciate you and all the people that are performing that audit function, because I do think it can be beneficial whether you're in a CTE facility or any type of campus situation, and we really appreciate you guys.
Well, I would say this: any of the campuses that have been through a visit, or any of the districts who've been through a visit, if you've got feedback on CTE that you think will help improve the process, if you bring that to me, I'll take it back to our team, and we'll go to the school safety center and seek guidance on it.
Greg, do you mind posting your email in the chat?
I will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on with some quick updates, and most of these we had during the last one. There was a to administrator address letter that came out, and beginning it with this year's graduates, you can start counting the military enlistment, re-enlistment students again. And what you use for documentation is the DD Form 4. So as soon as the student goes to the recruiter and signs up, you can get that DD Form 4 and count that in your accountability ratings. And all of you have seen this by now, but just to hit it real quick, This year's graduates may use the old and new list on the IBCs, and they must have one course aligned in that program of study that is level 2 or higher. And what we told you last time is that if a course is level 1 in one program of study and level 2 in another program of study, then it counts as a level 2 course in all programs of study, and they're trying to clean that up right now. Next year's graduates may use the old and new list, but they have to be a concentrator. They have to have at least 2 credits in an inline program of study, 2 courses and 2 credits. Beginning in the 2025 graduates, they can only use the new IBC list, plus they have to be a completer in an aligned program of study. Look for the final determination. Again, you can see all of the documents still say proposed. It should come out this month, and I double checked my email, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to hear from Sherry and PT to see if they mentioned that, but the final should come out in November. I do know that we are attempting the earned pass. We are reporting the earned, passed, and attempted, and we have covered that twice in 2 roundtable, so I won't hit it again too much. But all of those there's a frequently asked question list on the IBCs that came out with that to the administrator addressed. Remember, when they're referring to the V2 or the version 2 list, that's the 19 through 22 list. And then the version 3 list is the 22 through 24 list, and it will have, of course, the sunsetted IBCs on that list. There is a new IBC frequently asked certification that Chelsea and Lisa put out in their service. I strongly encourage you to look at that IBC. It has a lot of great information in it, and it gives very specific guidance on what is earned, passed, and attempted, and the differences. Also, critically important, as we mentioned in the CTAT chat and into some correspondence, health science, EMT certification has been added to the health science programs of study. And so 4 programs of study under health science now can now earn the EMT certification, and there's several others that have been added and aligned with different. There have been several different IBCs aligned to several different programs of study since our last roundtable, and you can find all of those on the TEA website under IBCs, and they have the updated. And I really like that they're doing this. They put the date that it was updated, so you can go on there, and if you haven't looked at the updated program of study IBC alignments since October 20th, changes have been made, and they put those changes in red, and that is fantastic. And we really appreciate the folks at TEA. They're listening to you, and they're hearing what you have to say as far as alignments, and they are making changes. And of course, you know that if it aligns to 2 different programs of study, the IBC will be listed on the crosswalk multiple times. Don't forget that if you're using our spreadsheet to calculate your FTEs, don't forget to set your attendance rate, because that will impact the FTEs you're generating. And also, don't forget that if you have a semester course, for example, equine science, and you have 100 students in equine science, well, those students are only in there for half a year, so make sure that you cut that enrollment in half and enter 50. If you have equine science, 2 semesters, we'll leave it full, but you'll have to cut your enrollment in half if they're only half a year. Also, something that's come up, if you're one of the 4-day-a-week districts, then there's a district waiver out there, and the deadline to submit that waiver is December 30th. And it has several components, but the major component to the waiver is you're going to have to tell how your CTE programs are going to meet that 8,000 minute requirement for the 22-23 school year. And also I'm sorry, go ahead.
Before you leave that, we've been working with a number of schools on that waiver. And when we've gone out and started calculating the minutes, we found some districts that are short. If you are a district using that 4-day week and you've not calculated your minutes for the TEA guidance, you need to take a look at that, because it's very specific. And we're in our ESC, we're a little bit concerned statewide at how many of the schools are not aware of the waiver process and may not be meeting the minute requirement. So again, if you've transitioned to that 4-day week or 4.5 days or however you're doing it, you really want to take a look at that and make sure that you're meeting the minute requirement for CTE, and then you want to use that waiver process. And it is a process that you have to review and present your comprehensive needs assessment, not your CLNA, but your comprehensive needs assessment that's used by your school board. You have to include that data. There's some specific information in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that one's got our full-blown attention.
That's great. And while you're mentioning part of that compliance to get to the 8,000 minutes, it could be adding additional lab time on Fridays. I mean, it's how the district comes up with a process to get to it. Is that right, Greg? Yeah.
That
And
is
so-
correct, but you need to go in and they need to calculate and make sure that they're meeting that requirement.
Right. And so
Or
because
can I-
40, yeah, please go ahead.
well, you may be about to say this. So what we figured out is that just be careful if you've gone to 4-day weeks. We're going through the waiver process with 2 of my districts, but you have to have 450 minutes to over a 2-week span. So if you've gone to a true 4-day week, that means 57 minutes per hour per contact hour, not 45. So if you're at 45, you're not going to get any of your CTE funding. So be very careful. And then you need to go jump through the hoops on the waiver. And one of my superintendents actually mentioned, she said, the waiver is not necessarily an easy, simple, fill out a couple of things. Like, it's a process. So just watch out.
For sure. Hey, thank you guys for contributing to that. And there may be a lot more questions about that when we get out to the gallery. Thank y'all so much. And so now we'll move into the legislative task force. We had a group that met, and Robin, do you want to take this over, or you want me to keep going, or?
You can keep going if you'd like to. You want me to just let me know when you're ready for the link to the policy priorities.
Okay. The legislative task force met last month or the first of this month. My check engine light came on, so sometimes I get my days confused. But so anyway, they met and they took all of the information that was sent in by you on the Google form that Robin sent out. And I'm really summarizing, but so the legislative task force met and they broke into subgroups and they prioritized the legislative agenda for the upcoming legislative session. And Robin and Lindsay have just posted that on the CTAT website. So if you'll go to the CTAT website and click on About, and then click over on Advocacy and then Priorities, then that list will come up. And that's the list that the task force has put together. And I know that Callie Jo Stout and Mark McClure were co-chairing that. And so if you have any questions, and Robin just posted that website in the chat. And so if you have any questions, they'll be on here to talk about the process and how they came up with the priorities. And a lot of that input came right here from these roundtables. So thank you guys so much. And then that is the end of the slide presentation. And I'm going to stop sharing and go back into the gallery because I'm anxious to hear what folks have to say. Does the screen look normal again, gallery? Robin,
So
does
I
that
got it.
look
It
normal
does. It
again?
looks great. So I got to jump in here for a second, though. So as you guys all know, as you serve in leadership roles in your districts, part of your job is recognizing talent on your staff and supporting your staff members as they learn new things so they can grow and thrive. And so it is no secret that I lean on Mark heavily for talking about policy and doing advocacy work. And so I've asked him if he would be interested in taking a greater role in going and hitting up the staffers at the Capitol with us. And he said yes. And so I'm so proud. He's like officially expanding into working on advocacy for CT. He knows it backwards and forwards. And he's in such a great place to get feedback from members. He's out in the field all the time. So I'm really proud. And to his credit, he said that he's excited about learning something new. And he's going to be absolutely fantastic. what you have to do at the Capitol is basically just explain CTE in a way that the layperson can understand, and that builds a lot of trust. And you all know firsthand how good Mark is at that. So
I'm really
join me in
looking forward.
congratulating him.
I'm looking forward to the grift and the payoffs too. So, not that that happens, but if it does.
Yeah.
Gosh, what do you guys
You're-
have? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Robin.
No, you're great.
I'm really looking forward to helping out however I can, and I know that it's very interesting, and I'm excited about learning about it. And I know the easy part is you're advocating for what I consider the best group in the school system, and I really mean that. And so that part will be the simple part. So what do you guys have to bring up to the roundtable? I'm looking forward to today. Anything new and exciting?
I've got a question. Can y'all hear me? This is Heather in Marble Falls.
Yes.
Okay, so Stacy and I have been working today on transitioning our programs of study sheets from the old template on the TEA website to the new templates that they've put out. And have any of y'all done this and noticed what they have in the non-discrimination clause at the bottom of that?
About the Boy Scouts.
Yes, I wasn't at
Right.
the last couple of meetings I've had conflict, so maybe y'all have already talked about this, but what is that all about?
Well, it's funny. Rick Bracey called me the other day and said, "Have you seen it? And what should I do?" And I said, "Well, I had not seen it." And Rick pointed it out to me, and I said, "Well, just rock and roll with it. If that's what TEA is using on their website, I think that's what I would use." I don't know how
That
the
is
Boy
so
Scouts apply.
weird. And I went and looked at the old template, and of course, it doesn't have anything like that on. Like, I've never seen anything like that. So I guess we'll just leave it. It's very odd.
And I always keep a list of questions that I send to TEA from the roundtables, and I'm putting that on my list of questions right now, and I'll get a response back. I'm
Okay.
sure a quick one on that one.
Thank you.
I think that may have come from some legislation that said you couldn't preclude or prevent the Boy Scouts from presenting information or coming on campus. I remember there was something a couple of years ago. I remember our attorney on staff at our school district came to us and gave us an update on that. But if I remember correctly, I believe it had to do with some state legislation in Texas. I don't think this was a federal thing. I think it came from the state of Texas. Remember, we can't require less, but we can require more. That's kind of the guidance. So don't quote me on that, but I think that's where that came from.
So should we start using this on all of our printed information for non-discrimination?
I can tell you in the MOU visits that I've been a part of, they've not looked for it. They've not counted that as one of the categories, but I
Okay.
would say that it's probably tied to our legislation or the state of Texas specifically. If I remember correctly, and I know Mark's going to check on that, he'll give us the guidance, but that's my recollection.
And
Okay.
I just sent the question away, but also, Greg, there's the MOA visit, but are they still doing the OCR visits as well?
So I don't know about OCR. You know, MOA really is the vehicle that they use to check for accessibility, and it is an OCR visit. They still use the OCR
Okay.
standards. It's just a little more narrow in focus from the old OCR visits, which were very expansive and looked at all of your campuses, all your programs and services. They really narrowed the scope to just almost CTE specific, and that's the difference between the two in my observation.
Where do we find a copy of that includes the Boy Scout? Is it on the TEA website somewhere?
It is on the TEA websites. It's on the bottom of all of the program of study one-pagers, and it's on the non-discrimination site on the TEA website where it has the examples of the non-discrimination statements. The new ones are up and they're on there.
Okay, does it only say Boy Scouts? Does it say Girl Scouts? I'm confused.
It
Only
just
Boy
says
Scout.
Boy Scout.
It says the whole basis of base color, blah, 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 blah. And then it says sex, disability, or age in its programs or activities, and provides equal access to the Boy Scouts and other designated youth programs.
So am I the only one that thinks it would be weird to only say Boy Scouts and not say Girl Scouts?
We thought that too.
Right.
It's, I don't know.
It might relate to the big litigations going on related to the LBGT community in the Boy Scouts that have been going on across the country. I know churches have been faced with that with their Boy Scout troops and things. So that's why I'm thinking maybe the Boy Scouts were identified.
And I can understand that. It just seems like if you put one, you put the other. I don't know.
And I guess that's what under the other organizations, right? So
I tell you what I'll do. We've got an MOA visit coming up pretty quickly in our region, and I don't get to participate. I have to, if I'm there, I have to turn my camera off and I can't speak, but I do get to listen. So if I hear anything about them asking specifically about that, I'll bring it back to this group and I'll share with you what I find out.
And I am trying to Google that and pull it up so I can put a link in the box right now.
And when you send those questions to TEA, can you leave our name off, Mark?
I always put Hayes ISD wants to know.
I'm sure you do. I'll be at TRS on Monday.
No, I always, and that's one of the services I think we can really provide is that we can ask those questions where it's not coming from a specific district. And so we never mention anything like that unless the district specifically asks us to. And I put the copy to the non-discrimination statement in there, and that's the newest one that has the Boy Scout terminology.
Thank you, sir.
I don't think though they would have made that mistake on every piece of every document they put out. Someone would have, so it must, I'm with Greg, it must be in there for a reason.
So I just happened to Google it, like you said, Mr. Bosher, and it says the Boy Scouts of America Equal Access Act by the U.S. Department of Education. So
Okay.
I'm assuming it's part of, I'll put that in the chat, but I just happened to, I was curious too. My son's a Boy Scout. So when I read those, I had to ask the same question of why.
Thank you so much. What other questions or comments or topics do you guys want to get into this month?
Mark, this is Tracy Andrews from El Paso, Kenny
Hey.
Teo. How are you today?
Fantastic.
Good. I just wanted to draw to the attention of everybody on the TEA templates that on cybersecurity at the bottom, they have the disclosure of what endorsement it follows, and it's incorrect. They've got agribusiness program of study. When you finish it, you get the business and industry endorsement. But of course, it should say cybersecurity and STEM endorsement. So just before everybody, maybe makes their own templates, they might want to look at that.
And thank you, Miss Andrews. And that was something that I've heard that in a couple of different meetings. And there's a spreadsheet that you can find on the website that they say is correct. And also you should always use what's in the code tables on the Tweeds website. So it's they know that that's incorrect and they're fixing them as fast as they come across them. So
Okay,
thank you
sounds
so
good.
much.
I had also asked a question in the chat about the technology credit.
Mhm.
How other districts are deriving at which classes will count as a required graduation tech credit. So in the
What-
past, of course, I'm sorry, Mark, a lot, of students would go through BIM 1, it would almost just be a big giant exodus after BIM 1, then after they received any of those Microsoft Office. But now that, with the narrowing of those certifications and, it's just not as elusive out, as to what can be considered tech credit. We're a little bit in short supply of those tech credit classes. Jennifer Martin, thank you. She says they use their fundamental principal foundations courses in their tech courses, but we're a little bit shy. So we weren't sure if there was anybody else using anything else.
And I'll let the other districts respond, but you know, that's not a graduation requirement from the state anymore, that tech apps credit. And so when I come across that at a district, I recommend that they eliminate that credit because it could be serving as a barrier to developing program study completers. So that's my recommendation, is that your district just eliminate the tech ed or tech apps credit, the technology credit, because it's not a state requirement. And it's just like what you said, it's going to keep kids from being completers. So, but what are other districts doing? If you hear,
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if anybody else has put anything in.
yeah, I think you're
And
going to find that the majority of districts are getting away from that as a.
Yeah, because I know it was in our, we kept it, so that, we would try to help bolster some recruiting and, it just sounded like a good idea to keep the tech credit in, but I will take that to my boss and say, I think it's time to let that loose.
A lot of people kept it in because they had the staff for it, and then they kept the health
Right.
science in for a little bit. Some districts even kept the speech, but it's hard to promote both the tech credit and the program of study completion.
I agree with you. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Thank you so much. Great question. Let's see, there's a question in the chat that says, talks about engineering program of study has digital electronics as a level 3 course on the first page and a level 2 on the second page. Ms. Pena, would you email me that? Because I'm going to send that into TEA because they said that that was absolutely not happening. And so I'm going to send that specific one into TEA because they said that there would never be a break between level 2 and 3. But so I'm going to make sure, because that's a funding discrepancy too. So if you don't mind emailing me that, I'm going to put that on the list too, because that's not only that's a funding issue as well.
Yeah, if you look at the programs of study, I pop up engineering, and on the first page, it has digital electronics level 3. But then when you scroll down where it gives you the PEIMS number, it shows it as a level 2.
And I'm pulling that up right now. I'm going to look at it while we're doing it. And it's the same service ID number?
Yes.
And where is it, in engineering or in STEM?
Yeah, it's in STEM engineering program of study.
And which one is it? Engineering?
Correct.
And what specific course was it?
Digital electronics.
Okay, so it's level 3 on the front and level 2 on the back. Okay, got it. I got it bookmarked and saved so I can send it. So don't worry about emailing it if you don't want.
Awesome, thank you.
Also, look, on the front side, they only have one level 1 class. And on the back side, they have 3.
Yes, ma'am. Well, they
more than just that class.
on level 2, right? Yeah, they got manufacturing technology, digital electronics, and engineering science on the bottom, and then on the top it says just manufacturing. Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's
Oh, and thank you for whoever helped with getting the IAED 911 telecommunicator back into the law enforcement program study.
well, that just comes from you guys. So I do know that they're checking it. And then let's see. They have
I have a question.
all of the spreadsheets are down right now, so they must be correcting it on the spreadsheets. If you look on the at a glance Excels and all of the Excels, so those are all down, so they must be working on those right now as well. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was looking at the recommendations on accountability. Was there any talk of, it bothers me that we're doing fine on the CCMR, and getting industry-based certificates, we were doing okay. Of course, they keep, pulling rugs out from under us. But what frustrated me is on my money generation, on that outcomes bonus, needing to have TSI. If a kid's going welding, by the nature of that kid going welding and getting certified in welding, they're probably not thinking about going to college and being college ready. So we're doing what's right for those kids, but our funding's gonna suffer because I even asked the TSI workshop folks, I went to a workshop and said, so what's the incentive for a kid to do well on the TSIA? And they're like, tell them it's nice for the school to have money. I mean,
Right.
is anybody else, or did that come up anywhere? I didn't see it on the list. I saw expand and let programs of study count for outcomes bonus, but if we still have to be TSI.
Well, and excuse me for just being ignorant on it. Is that not part of the same pool of money?
So to generate outcomes bonus, they're college ready and enroll, or they're IBC and meet TSI.
Oh, okay. And I'm sorry, I just wasn't aware of that. And that may be on the list. I was in a different group when they talked. Robin, do you know if any of the groups address that?
Unless I'm confused, but I've looked at the chart multiple times.
Mhm. If you will email that to me, I will certainly look into it. And I was thinking that was all the same pot of money. So if they were IBC, or even if they were enrolled in a level 1 or level 2 certificate program, which what you're saying is absolutely correct. You don't necessarily have to pass the TSI to do that. So,
No,
So,
for outcome bonus, you do need to have both of them. There's a chart that let me turn on my video. Sorry, there's a chart that they have on there, and during the summer they provide that list of how many students provided or met those outcome bonus requirements. So it's career, it's an IBC, but it's always TSI, or college ready like TSI and enrollment, or an associate standalone. So those are the 3 ways to meet those outcome bonus. And what it is if you meet a certain threshold, which is a certain percentage of your campus, if you surpass that threshold, it's a formula, and every student gives you like $3,000. And if they're special ed, they give you an additional $3,000 or $2,000. So it's a formula, and then they give you that that sheet in your teal account. It's on there on how many students met that outcome bonus. But she's right, it's TSI is always required if it's career or college. So that doesn't make any sense either.
yeah. Okay, very good.
So I think it's super important though that the TSI, that is not just talking about the TSIA. It's actually talking about SAT, ACT, and they have to, pass the math. They could mix and match, but they have to pass the math and the ELAR. I don't know if everybody knew that, but yeah, it's definitely, I feel like it's, we want them to be college and career ready. But when I look at that, I also see that higher ed is also wanting kids to be college ready. So they're really pushing the TSI part of it,
And the college prep courses don't count for this. Here it's the actual assessments. You have to pass the SAT, ACT, like Ms. Carpenter just said, those TSI college prep courses don't count. So it's the actual assessment, the scores that you get.
And you're going to email me that, but just to make sure, if a student earns a level 1 or level 2 certificate, that's not considered that's not considered for the outcome bonus. And that's what we're trying to get to, right? Which makes perfect sense.
No, I think the level 1 and level 2, those can count as your outcomes bonus as well with a TSI.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But a lot of those students will get that without even having taken the TSI.
Yes,
See, we're not
that's
gonna
right.
have- I'm just talking about, so for example, all of our students in our culinary who get serve safe manager, if they're not college ready, if they haven't met a score on one of the TSI requirements, we're not going to generate funds. If we get the AWS sheet metal certification for our welding program their ag mech students, those IBCs do not generate any funds. We'll get CCMR credit for accountability, but my funds keep dropping because a kid who wants to go to work after high school welding and probably could isn't going to go take a TSIA just because we ask them to. And I don't see, to me, the disconnect is if a kid is career bound and they're working on industry-based certifications, which jobs don't require a college degree, we are penalizing the schools for kids who choose those careers, and we're prepping them for them, but we're not going to generate funds simply because they don't intend to go to college or prove to us that they're college ready.
And they are reimbursing you for the test, but what you're saying is you're losing money that you could be earning towards materials.
Yes, they took away what they used to give schools money in what was called allotment.
Mhm.
And then they took away allotment and they restructured it to outcomes bonus money.
Right.
And so that's the money that you use to purchase the next set of materials to help kids or expand a program, those funds. And I just see it as penalizing students who are choosing industry careers that don't require college. And I didn't see any of that on our recommendations.
I just dropped the resource on the chat as well. It's a chart that'll help you see the difference between CCMR and outcome bonus.
And to me, what's really frustrating is all these kids that we've put in College Bridge in a college prep math or English class. And the rule with College Bridge is for them to get TSI compliant from that, is what they call it. They have to make a 90 or better on the College Bridge curriculum program, or they don't. And so we're saying that a kid that gets a 90 or better on College Bridge isn't counted for TSI for outcome bonus. That's ridiculous.
Well, on the Texas College Bridge, I had to help oversee that at my previous district, and the kids were able to sail through that with no problem. Like they game it.
Our kids do in English, but they are not doing that in math.
Ours were able to do it in both, and so we had kids sailing through it and getting 90% with no problem. So I had asked the Texas College Bridge if there was a way to put in place ways where kids had to spend a certain amount of time on the lessons. And they said they had no way to do that because the kids were able to skip the lessons and go straight to the assessments and keep redoing the assessments until they had gotten to the pass level. And they were just writing down their answers and just kept on redoing until they passed. So I think that's why they're kind of trying to backtrack on some things on that. I don't agree with it. I'm just saying.
And I'm going to have to look and see if that is a legislative. Robin, do you know off the top of your head if that's legislative or is that pot of money controlled by a specific group?
Well, I think that outcomes bonus, it is in statute. All of the criteria is in statute because they expanded that section in the law, I think in HB 5 last session.
Well,
yeah, we can look it up.
Yeah. And it doesn't make, I mean, what you're saying is true. It doesn't make sense that you should have to, if you've earned a level 1, you don't need to be TSI complete. You've already earned it.
It is HB3, and I also dropped in the second link is the actual PowerPoint where it explains the methodology and the formula and how much money is calculated. So they're both on there.
Thank you guys so much.
I should probably ask this after you turn off the video, but I'm gonna ask anyway. I never see the outcomes bonus. Like it goes in some general fund somewhere. I want to know how many of your CTE departments actually see that money because I never see it.
Quick, turn the video off.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't care. I've said it out loud. Like, why doesn't this money come back into CTE? It goes in some general fund.
Can I address that just a little bit, Mark? And
Sure.
I appreciate the question. So that money of course, it's in your summary finance if you want to know how much it is. And it's also broken down by your economically disadvantaged kids and all that. But that's something between your school district and your chief financial officer and your superintendent. If you want to know what it's being used for, you can have some reports run on that. If you're in that pipeline, if you know what I mean. But we've always said that if you are informed on what you've got as far as your money and you know what you're bringing in, that those are weapons that you could go into your superintendent's office and say, look, this is going to happen in 2 years. We're going to have this much more money coming in on outcome bonus before you assign that anywhere, because you don't know that it was out there. You don't know that it's coming, but I do, because I'm the CT administrator and I'm on top of things. We need to use that money. Of course, 55% of it has to be used on getting kids either CTE or TSIA or the IBC or TSIA2 ready, but 45% of it just kind of goes into the dark hole unless you get to it before your chief financial officer gets to it.
So am I the only one that doesn't ever see it?
And unless you're going into summary finances, nobody's going to tell you it's been.
Oh, no, I see it. It shows $500,000. I don't know where it is.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're the only one. I think you're the majority.
I'm the only one that says something.
Also just remember, it's not just generated by CTE. So your AP classes,
Oh, I know.
it's a whole half, and depending on your district's dynamic, they may be generating more on the college side,
I gave him a breakdown of exactly how many certifications we should have been reimbursed for.
Well, that would be a different pile of money, the reimbursement
That's
versus the outcome bonus.
Yeah, that outcome bonus money, half of it is always generated by industry-based certifications. Half of it's always your CTE department. So you do have some claim to that. Mark, whenever we did our level 2 administrator training, that's one of the things we always talk about. If you know how much money you've got coming in, you know how much extra money you've got coming in because you've added classes and you've been calculating that out, you need to get to your superintendent before anybody else and say, look, this money hasn't gone to a dark hole. It's not supporting band. It's not supporting athletics. It's just rolled in. And we need equipment, we need facilities, we need supplies, we need teachers, and here's the money to make it happen. Be proactive, guys.
Well, I think what would help is I know one of the legislative priorities is trying to up our 55%, and I think that would help tremendously because so much of it goes to salaries. And, and the cost of everything has gone up, food and metal and everything else, and the money's not there.
Yeah, I know. I meet with my CFO deputy, or now our assistant suit, multiple times throughout the year. But one thing I do when course enrollments go out here in Anna is we've kind of, and it's been over a period of time. I love numbers. I love money. I love to figure things out and get ahead of things. And so we started working to be within a certain range based upon enrollment. So kids sign up for classes. We don't necessarily work predictions. Then we start looking at a snapshot and where we're at. Hey, let's get ahead of this because I don't want you guys owing me any money at the end of the year, right? And so what we try to do here is it's been pretty accurate, is we take those enrollment numbers and I calculate those in advance based upon the lowest rate or the lowest attendance rate that we had in the previous year. And that's how I budget everything. And then from there, these other monies that you're talking about with regards to the outcome bonus monies, yeah, that's something that it's the same thing. It's conversations with your C&I department. I think that, if they know that, I think, you can get some help there. So.
And I think one part of the puzzle too is I think they're giving us the 55% period right now because I think attendance has been lower than they expected for everyone, and they're just trying to find the money anywhere. And to be honest,
Hey, I was happy when we were at about 95. We're hovering mid 95s, and so I'm not mad about that. So that's more money. But the key is like staying ahead and showing the people, improving the formulas. Andrea, you send out that new update. Mark, you put that out there, and I utilize all that and I combine that with some things, some practices that I've had, and I try to run our budget just like you would run a district. And so you're running a mini district with CTE. It's a lot of money. And I think the biggest thing is to show them, where all the those channels are going, and then they could see, okay, this is the remaining, so we can talk about staff and all that good stuff. But yeah.
I did get a response back from TEA about the OCR statement, the non-discrimination statement, and that is what the feds require. So use the one with the Boy Scouts in it.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I was just going to say that the TASBO CTAT training that we just had this week was really good. One thing I will say that was very informative is that when she shared the direct cost 3-year worksheet to template where you can put in your school district in there.
Right.
For everybody that's wondering about your allotment and things like that, it gives you a 3-year running average, and it has your CCMR outcome bonus on there. And so you can see exactly what your district was allotted, what was turned in on your expenditure report for all your special programs, obviously CTE and CCMR outcome bonus. And so it also shows you if you're not in 55% compliance. So Ms. Mitchell, in your case where you were saying, where's that money? And how, you may not even have somebody in your finance department that even knows what that's for, or if it's there. So I would get that template, put your school district in there and see, and you might not even be meeting the 55% compliance to begin with, and that even will help give you more information to take into that meeting with you.
And Jeff, that was they had that on the TASBO website.
Free to everybody.
Yeah, free to everybody. You don't have that link in there that you could post?
I do.
I was going to say, because I was at the Pflugerville TASBO meeting, but I don't remember that.
You didn't show that. Yeah.
We were special down in Houston, apparently.
You are special, Jeff. Thank you.
She had a specific question and then went in there and showed that. And that's how that came up. And thanks for putting that in there, Jeff. But all you have to know is your district number, and you put it in there and all that stuff pops up, and you have to download the file. But it's an amazing.
And it's you said it's a 3-year average, Jeff?
3, yes.
Yeah, so, you know, we always talk about 55%, and the way TEA figures it's on a 3-year average. So you may be at, 60% this last year, 50 this year, and, 62 the year before. And so over a 3-year period, and it shows you, it says true or false if you're compliant or not for everything.
But Jeff, wasn't that a link in the PowerPoint like that you had to click on?
No, I downloaded directly off their TASBO website when she walked us through the process.
I know why you're thinking that, Miss Edenfield, because it was part of the presentation, but that guy over there with the AV stuff, he jumped out of it onto a website. It was hard to notice, but he had jumped out onto a website. They were accessing that through the TASBO website.
Okay.
There it is right
we
there.
Looked at it there at the meeting, because I brought my financial guy. And so the direct and indirect was extremely helpful, because that's where him and I have been going back and forth, because he kept saying that when he charges electricity, water, that's a direct cost. And I kept saying, no, that's an indirect cost. Yeah. And so when she clarified that, I just looked at him and nudged his arm and I said, you owe me more money. And so he just was like, oh my God, because that's been one of the conversations that I've been having with him, is how they basically take the 45% and use that, to keep the district running, obviously, but then they're turning around and they take the average cost of electricity and water and all of that for the district. And then they turn around and they divide it out between all the departments, and then turn around and charge you that again out of your 55%. And I'm like, no, you're double dipping on me. You can't do that. So it was very nice to hear her say that out loud, I will say.
And that's the beauty of that partnership with TASBO. That wasn't coming from us. That was coming from their association.
And that's why I'm taking my finance team with me.
Yes.
And it's not uncommon. I hear that all the time.
Oh, wow, there it is.
All right. Thanks,
Ooh.
Jeff, for putting that tool in there, that TASBO tool. If everyone wants to take a minute to copy and paste that, and then you can download your district's information.
I have a quick question. Does anybody, or is anybody in the region remember the TA special allotment monitoring program that they were going to do and monitor the different allotments such as CTE, special ed, bilingual? They were going to do a pilot program and they started doing some trainings. And the reason I know is because I attended those trainings. One was held here in our region. And we were able to, we brought in all our reports, we did our activities, we were able to identify what our percentage was. And I was shocked to see that I was getting like 80% of CTE after doing the numbers, you know, based on all the indirect and direct costs. Of course, there's some expenses that I don't know whether they were CTE related because the districts was putting them in there. And then they were putting some in the undistributed amount if the finance people understand what I'm talking about. But I never saw that move forward. Does anybody remember that special allotment monitoring that they were going to do?
I saw that same presentation in 2017, and that has vanished from the face of the earth.
Uh-huh.
Never
That's
saw
how
it
I
again.
figured about the 3-year, the 3-year direct. And so I was just wondering if that ever fell through or they just got rid of it.
As far as I know, that has never resurfaced since then. I saw it in the fall of 2017, but they were going to come around monitoring from the state on whether or not you were spending your percentage, and it just never happened.
Okay. Yeah, I know they were asking for volunteers, and well, we didn't volunteer, so we just don't know if they ever did any monitoring on those on the districts. And then going back to the reimbursement. So what I do, because I know we were getting that money, and sometimes if you don't tell them that you know about that money, they just go ahead and do whatever they want with it. So what we do in our district, I use the summary of finance, and it's there on your summary of finances, and it tells you how much you're going to get. So I get that amount, and I create my line items, and I send it off to our accounting department and to our CFO and say, hey, according to the summary of finances, this is the amount I'm supposed to get. So I make sure that they know that I'm aware of that. And so I make my line items, and then they distribute that money to me, and I distribute it to the campuses. So that's what I did on our part. So that way I know I get that, 150 or whatever it is amount. So that's something I do. And I just say, here's the summary of finance, I'm here, So if you don't let them know that, then that money's just going to be lingering around somewhere and they'll use it for something else.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions or comments before I stop the recording button? Well, again, thank you so much for being a part. And I picked up no fewer than 10 things today that I'm researching and that I didn't know. And I can't thank you guys enough. And I'm going to hit the stop recording button, and we will see you next month at the December roundtable.
Mark, I had a question. I don't know if anybody wants to stay on for it, but one last question about, and this isn't really that big of a deal, but on the new templates, on engineering under the CTSO, it's no longer TSA, they've got Skills USA. So again, I'm, not a huge deal, but I just wondered if anybody else had noticed that.
I have not and in my old district, we use TSA for engineering as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, not, that's not part of anything for accountability, but
right.
I was surprised that it had skills, and I just wondered if it was a mistake, or I know that there is competitions probably related in there to engineering, but I mean, not really holistically used, I don't think, in our CTSO for that.
And of course, that's something that you could add to it. I usually recommend never add to those documents, only subtract. But if you wanted to add that for your district, no accountability, nothing. So
right. Okay. Thank you.
if I were TSA, I'd be all over that though,
Yeah.
for sure.
I would too. All right, thanks.
Okay, and so I'm looking at it, and Miss Anderson, we got your graduation plans. You got the documentation for that. We're okay, very good. And so thank you guys so much. And I'm gonna stop recording, and then we'll stay on for a little slack if we need to.